Thank you, Martin, for the introduction, and also thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here. And I also have to thank Thomas for giving a perfect background for my presentation because you perfectly illustrated the typical use cases, the typical situations in which the cities are, what use cases they want to start with, what comes next, and how it should be implemented. So today I should speak about public transport deployment in Czechia. It's quite a major system now. We have many deployments, so it was quite difficult to fit within 10 minutes to show the important projects. But before I do that, let me tell you a few words about our company. So I come from Herman Technologies. We are based in Brno, in Czechia, and we are supplier of systems and devices for CITS and public transportation. And in fact, we started in the public transportation field, and through public transport prioritization, we entered the CITS field. So we are not a typical ITS company. Uh, I think Thomas gave a very nice introduction why to use CITS in public transportation. So I can only briefly.
You're not sharing the presentation yet.
I'm sorry very much. Thanks for reminding me. Sorry for that. Share. Is it better now?
Perfect.
Oh, and I'm very sorry for that. Why to use CITS in public transportation? It can help in efficiency of public transportation through prioritization, which is the typical starting use case for public transportation. It can reduce cost of operation through prioritization and glossar functionality, and it can also increase safety by showing some warning or information to the driver. So why the cities in Czechia typically start with public transportation? It's simple because it gives immediate benefit to the city. So you're not waiting for the automotive industry to do something. You build a CITS system for your own needs, for the own needs of the city. And typically the public transport operators are owned or controlled by the city, so it's easy to start with that. And even though there are not that many public transport vehicles on the roads, they have a very high number of driving hours. So the bus typically starts early in the morning and late at night. So if you increase safety of the bus driver or of the bus, I think it's an important step in contributing to the overall safety of the traffic. And of course, if you start with public transport prioritization, you build the infrastructure, you open the door for many other use cases, not only for the city need, but also for the other potential CITS users. On this slide, I show a map of the CITS deployment in Czechia. You can see that there are 10 fully production projects. By fully production, I mean that it's a full fleet deployment. So all the vehicles of the public transport company are equipped. The systems really rely on public transport prioritization and sometimes other use cases. So these are not pilot projects. So in total, we have about 2,600 public transport vehicles with onboard units only in Czechia in daily operation. And if we count the number of journeys per every day, there's more than 1 million passenger journeys per day. So let's say 1 million people takes benefit of CITS deployment every day in Czechia. I think each of the projects I show here is interesting and important on its own, but for this presentation, I decided to select 3 of them: Brno, Hradec Králové, and Třebíč. So why I selected these cities? I think if I speak about public transport deployment in Czechia, I cannot start without Brno because it was the first big public transportation project in Europe, and it's still one of the biggest one. And also, it's important because it was part of the C roads rollout period for cities. So it was one of the really the first where everyone who participated really learned a lot. The system in Hradec Králové is slightly different. It was built after the experience from Brno, and it was not a CITS system. It was built as an ITS system, or a complex ITS system, of which CITS was an important part. And it was the first such a big CITS project in Czechia. That's why I selected it. And the system in the smaller town of Třebíč I selected because it really shows that there is no need to have perfect CITS knowledge. There is no need to see all the other projects running in Europe. CITS can really help in solving your traffic needs, and small town of Třebíč selected CITS as the technology for prioritization and also other use cases. So as I mentioned, Brno, it really was probably the first big public transportation deployment in Europe. It was done in 2019. And since then, the city operates about 800 public transport vehicles with a CITS onboard unit, trams, buses, trolleybuses, mainly for the use in public transportation. This year, also the regional public transport vehicles joined. So 150 buses regularly coming to the city are now taking benefits of the already built infrastructure in the city to get priority at intersections and also other use cases. And I think there's more than 120 intersections in the city now with the roadside unit, not only for public transport prioritization. As Thomas said, it was not the first, in Brno, it was not the first public transport prioritization system. There was an analog radio-based system operating before. So the city had to deal with the transition from the previous system to the CITS-based system without changing the traffic light controllers. And the city managed that. So in 1 year, without interrupting priority service, the city was able, or the public transport operator was able to switch from analog radio priority to the CITS-based priority without any problems. And as it is the typical case in Czechia, the city started with public transport prioritization, but then many other public transport-related use cases appeared. So I can show you some pictures which are taken on the regional public transport vehicles, which joined this year to the system. On the left, you can see the onboard display of the onboard computer, which the driver regularly uses. And you can see that there's a countdown of how many seconds of green remain so that the driver can adapt his speed when approaching the intersection. On the right side, you can see warning about passing emergency vehicle, which was again directly shown to the driver. And I think it contributes to safety of public transport operation and also of emergency vehicle operation, because the bus then doesn't enter the traffic flow and block the emergency vehicle which is passing. And both use cases are done using the existing infrastructure. So the city built infrastructure for prioritization, and now they are using other use cases to get some benefits of the system. The system in Hradec Králové, as I said, was not a research project. It was a commercial project where the company was assigned the task build us ITS system, which will solve our traffic needs. And CITS was just selected as the good technology for prioritization and other city needs. So the city replaced all the traffic light controllers at the same time, basically within 1 or 2 years. It built a new traffic control center, CITS back office, enforcement devices, and also equipped 130 public transport vehicles with onboard units for public transport prioritization. Just to give you a number, currently there's about 7,500 priority requests every day. And there are also roadwork vehicles and emergency vehicles. And as the system was built, let's say from scratch, I think well-selected architecture was chosen for the system, and I will now present it from the point of view of the public transport. So in the middle, you see the onboard unit that was installed on the bus. The onboard unit communicates using CITS, or the short-range communication, with the roadside units and other traffic participants. And in the vehicle, it also has to communicate with the onboard computer, because without the data from the onboard computer, like the line number or the delay of the vehicle, it cannot generate a correct and meaningful priority request. So this connection is really essential. The onboard unit is also connected to the fleet management software, because there's 130 onboard units, which is quite a lot. And it's also connected to a CITS back office, which enables so-called hybrid or long-range communication. So the same priority request message can go using the direct communication and also the indirect through the CITS back office to the roadside unit, which helps in covering some, let's say, non-direct side cases in the city. And the CITS back office is also, one can say, even a sub-module of the traffic control center. So everything is tightly integrated in Hradec Králové. And as the last project is the project in the smaller town of Třebíč. It's a town in the region, in the countryside, but it suffers from heavy traffic because of the first-class road, which goes almost through the city center. So the city felt the need to build public transport prioritization system, and seeing the success stories from Brno or Hradec Králové, they decided to build it on CITS. And again, the typical case is start with public transport priority and then add some other use cases. So now we have glossa working, warning about passing emergency vehicle, about roadworks, and other use cases, which can be shown on this slide. So on the left, you see the recommendation to the driver to leave the stop now, which is indicated by the green background of the stop name. And this recommendation is shown to the driver, even though there's still a red on the traffic light, because the system knows that the vehicle will pass on green after it reaches the stop line. And on the right side, you can see again the warning about emergency vehicle, which is the blurred object in the background. So, there are also other use cases which are not related to prioritization. You can improve the passenger information system by installing a roadside unit on the stop and really make the timely information to the driver when the vehicle has arrived, when it's leaving. Or you can blink the edge of the platform when the tram is coming to warn the drivers. It's also possible to control rail point switches, show some collision warning for the trams. There are many more use cases which are really used only within the public transport service itself. And as Martin mentioned at the beginning, I will not speak only about Czechia. I also want to speak about Portugal, because there's a very nice project in Porto, which is the bus rapid transit line. Bus rapid transit means the public transport operation on the road, which should behave as if it was metro. So it should have the same, let's say, user experience. So the buses should really travel fast in the city. And in Porto, CITS was chosen as a key enabler of the bus rapid transit operation. So thanks to priority, the bus rapid transit is really operated. So the line length has about 4 kilometers. There are 26 intersections on this journey, which is quite a lot. And the vehicle is able to cover this distance in 11 minutes. So the average speed is above 20 kilometers per hour. And it's really enabled by CITS-based priority. So CITS is really reliable enough to become a key and critical part of the city ITS system. So let me conclude with what we learned in that many projects in Czechia. I would really emphasize that the data from the onboard computer is necessary. Without the data, you cannot do any priority request. So some integration between the onboard unit and onboard computer has to be done. And I would say that the success stories of CITS is that it's open standard. Everything is driven by the zero standard, which are accessible to everyone, and anyone can implement it. So I think it's a reasonable decision to do the same in the onboard network. So if possible, use some standards like IBIS IP, IT4PT, or the newly developed standard PTX, which allows also the bidirectional communication between the onboard unit and the onboard computer. So if you want to show something to the driver on the onboard computer, then PTX is the choice. And it's also useful to use PKI for securing the communication. And I think it's quite necessary for larger fleets to have some management software for the onboard units. And let me now summarize the benefits. So I dare to say that CITS is now a standard for public transport deployment in Czechia. I think every city which now starts with something in public transportation has CITS as part of its project. So why it has happened? I think it's because CITS is a reliable and proven solution. It's highly secured. It's decentralized, so there's no single point of failure. It minimizes vendor lock, which is thanks to the open standards. The communication range, which was a typical question of anyone who started with that, is really sufficient in urban environment for priority and for other use cases. So there's no need to be afraid of that. And if it's really not in the given case sufficient, then we have the hybrid communication. And the most important fact is that if you start with public transport priority, which is your own city needs, you open the door for future for many other use cases you can benefit from. So I think my dream of having a bus which will come with priority from Vienna through Brno to Dresden is achievable, and I would say quite close future. So thank you for your attention.